Welcome back, everyone, to KC Happy Hour, episode number 64 now. And oh my goodness, has it been a week and really a last couple 48 hours for news, Aaron. My God, man, we took a week off, and it seems like we got more news here in the last 7 days than we did in that 14-day gap.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised. We were coming in trying to plan out stuff to do, and they just kept dropping news after news for us, which was great for us to be able to talk about. I was a little worried for a minute here. We got plenty now.
Yeah, it has been a bombshell, Aaron. Let's go ahead and we'll take everybody through. You have a little bit of recap and notes to stuff that went over the weekend, correct?
Yeah, so the first part that I had on here was just a couple races we got going on over in Europe. IAME Warrior Final, formerly the World Final International Final, that went on over in Le Mans, France, and out there we didn't send any drivers out, but event happens every year. This is the first year in a while we haven't sent anybody out other than Keelan Harvick last week in the mini class. And then ROK Cup Super Final, we had a lot of American representation out here. Renato Jader David went P1 in ROK Masters with Derek Wang P2. So America won 2 for that, which is amazing. Hunter Pickett on his ROK Shifter debut, or the ROK Super Cup debut, went P6, I believe. I think he was 7th on track and then 6th after a penalty. ROK Senior, we had Carson Bowers. This is his first time running out in the ROK Super Cup as well as his debut. He ended up I want to say it was 68 after heat points, which did not transfer into the final, but he ended up with a solid P19 in the OMP trophy, kind of like a B main sort of for the event. ROK Jr., Victor de Alencar, and Stephen Miller, they were both struggling a little bit. Stephen Miller had moments where he was fast. I didn't check with Alencar, but they both did not make it into the B main off points, so they unfortunately ended up with a 104th and 73rd for the two of them respectively. It seemed like they had more pace though than what we saw from them. And then ROK Mini, we had 3 drivers out there: Vivek Kanthan, Kai Johnson, and Gage Korn, all of them in the top 10. Vivek Kanthan won the race. Kai Johnson ended up P4, and Gage Korn with a very solid P7 for our representation over in the ROK Cup Super Final.
Yeah, so we had a lot over there. We were supposed to have more at the IAME Warrior Final than we ended up having. Jeremy Fletcher got there were 3 guys that were that got tickets, at least in the senior categories, that I reached out to that I knew of. Ryan Norberg had one from winning the Pro Tour. Hayden Jones had one from second in the Pro Tour. Jeremy Fletcher had a KA ticket from the Pro Tour. Couldn't end up finding an OTK ride to get over there after trying a bunch of times, which was wild. Nobody wanted to field them. I don't think a lot of teams wanted to mess with it. And then in Hayden Jones's case, they did a lot of bending over to try and get him all over there. And I was texting with his dad Corbett a little bit earlier today. I was curious why he wasn't set to go. I knew that Ryan wasn't going to be going unless some big dominoes were going to fall. It just doesn't make sense for him to go. But for Hayden, it would have been really cool. Unfortunately, he had 2 really nasty crashes at the end of the IAME USA Grands. He had a wreck in K100 Senior, and then he had a big wreck at the end of the day. Blew up the barriers, getting run off the racetrack at the end in the X30 Pro main, running for 3rd. So that all kind of hurt him there. And there was a lot of other. I mean, it's such an effort to get overseas, to get everything logistically lined up. It's a lot trickier than the Rotax Worlds where you just have your ticket and you show up, because both those events are just no different than a standard international race, which makes it a little bit trickier for guys to go. But there's a lot of effort there, and there was a good talking point that was kind of over social media a little bit. We have Christian Marsh that's going to join us a little bit later on in the show here. That'll talk a little more about the stuff they're doing with the Stars Championship Series. That was the big bombshell that dropped just hours ago officially, that they're adding the OK class. But this was I saw a couple Facebook threads about the IAME and the ROK World Finals. I think there's a number of reasons why we have less of a field over there than where we have in years past. If you look back at the years past, even big name guys that have gone over there that were part of are veterans now. I mean, Ryan's gone over. He's podiumed at IAME Worlds, a few years ago. We've had he's run the ROK race. Kyle Kirkwood's run over there. Oliver Askew, Braden Eves has run over there. Brandon Jarschkracht's run the IAME Worlds before. All of them did it in that kind of 16 to 18-year-old range, and we don't really have a lot of those guys in our American senior classes. You have you have a small handful. But for most of them, at that point, they're already kind of looking towards the car ladder a lot sooner than where we were about 5 or 7 years ago. And I think a lot of people are looking more budget wise to kind of, hit what they have in the States and get better over here than do all the jumping through the hoops to go run over there in the junior and senior classes. Because for, a lot of years now, initially people were kind of, curious as to why we didn't have more people going over there this year, last year, and the last few years. It's not because of lack of tickets. Tickets have been getting up for grabs at USPKS, at SCUSA, at the Rock Winter Tour, at Rock Vegas. You win those, you get the tickets to go. But it's a lot of effort to go. And I think for a lot of people, there's just a lot of fatigue with all the racing that we have in the States right now. And for the people where the fatigue doesn't matter as much, whether it's financial fatigue of how many races hurt your budget or just the overall time, the 13 to 14-year-olds, they're kind of looking more towards the car ladder sooner. And I think that's a little bit of it too. And then you have this gap, and then you get to the Norbergs and Kremers and Hodgsons that are in their late, early 20s, into mid 20s, and they're in just a completely different point. As much as we'd want to see U.S. representation over in Europe, those guys are in a better personal financial state, being kind of on-track driver coaches over here in the U.S. and making more money over here. It's why Kremer's got, Marian Kremer's over here. I don't know this for a fact, but from my understanding, I mean, you can put 2 and 2 together. It wouldn't make sense for a former world champion to come over to just drive for an American team in the States with PSL, because he's a PSL driver. He's not just a Brell driver. He's doing some races with the Brell Factory team, but he's not a Brell Factory driver this year. He's linked with Brell and on for some other stuff as well. But he's over here as PSL, PSL's version of Ryan Norberg, basically over here, and Oliver Hodgson with Comp Card as well. So in all cases, the tickets are still going. It was a weird deal, just the way everything fell out, where we didn't get Hayden Jones. I think Jeremy Fletcher would have done really, really well in 100cc because they don't run the K stuff at the competitive level that we do over here, where there's so much double dipping. I think he would have probably won that, and I think all our people are really, really good. And you can see it in the mini ranks that, Vivek Canton spent pretty much the whole year out there. A lot of U.S. kids are running the whole year in mini and then going into OKJ over there, doing really good. So the talent's not an issue to go over there being competitive, but it's a lot of hoops to jump through to get to those races. So there's just it's a variety of factors of why not to go. But in a case like Norberg, it's pretty simple. He's got an opportunity to make money at home over here, or to spend money to go over there, and it's no different than staying in karts to make some money or to go and race cars and have to spend a whole lot. And that's one thing when you're 16. It's another when you're 23. So just a different deal. But it was cool. I think that maybe more of the trend that we'll see is a lot of kids run mini at those Worlds races, a lot of run junior, and then you'll see some, I don't want to call them career karters, but I don't know. I don't know if we'll have as many senior guys going over, if that trend will ever change. But
I don't know. It's hard. I've talked to people that have gone to it before, and they've said that it's not just you show up on Monday and you practice Tuesday, Wednesday, qualify, Thursday through Sundays, the races, whatever. When you go to those events, you spend 2 or 3 weeks out in Europe, and you're out there adjusting to the time zone and getting used to stuff. Sometimes you throw a club race in there too, and so especially like this year with the IAME Grands the weekend before X30 Senior and on the same weekend as KA Senior, it's hard for some of those kids that maybe see it as more worthwhile to go and do the IAME Grands over Le Mans, just because it's closer. You don't have to spend as much money. You don't have as much time involved in getting out to the track and stuff like that. So it's a lot of it, I feel like, is managing the what you have to give to do the event. And for some kids, you can't take 2 or 3 weeks off of school to go to France to race in one go-kart race.
Yeah, it's just a weird deal. I think how it all is. But I honestly, I'm not too upset about it, because I think as cool as it would be to have U.S. guys winning everywhere, I think it's been shown, as good as we've got it over here, that we can go win over there. And I don't think that we should isolate ourselves like we were in the late 2000s. But at the same time, it's not a big priority for what we've got over here. I think we've got stuff, a lot of better stuff on the state side that can focus on, stuff like the Super Nats. That's honestly at the same level of competition as probably for sure of the rock worlds in senior and shifter, absolutely, and of the IAME worlds, the X30 class is a little bit bigger, but still a lot of the same guys up front that we'll get to see in Vegas in a couple weeks, so that'll be cool. And speaking of Vegas, we got the rock track map finally came out. I was hoping to see if we could get a couple of the our shifter buddies to come on here, but everyone's just so busy in Vegas prep. It's tough to get everybody's time tonight, which is why I'm so excited to have Christian Marsh. He's in the green room. He'll be joining us here in a few minutes to come on the show. But the Rock Vegas track map got released, and not a whole lot that we'll have really to add on to it. But the main consensus from everyone from the tracks that we've seen with these temporary tracks for the shifter guys, which is really where you have to kind of be a little bit strategic and creative with how you design the racetrack to give them places to pass, because I think just a single speed will pass almost anywhere. But I like that we're seeing less double apex corners on this layout. It looks like, for example, that section kind of coming back from the far right and running into that switchback hairpin, that could be a decent passing zone for the shifter guys, depending how they set up that hairpin down in the center. If it ends up being a sweeper, if it ends up being a double apex, if it ends up being a tighter hairpin, really almost if the way that corner in the bottom left corner was designed was more of how the hairpin in the center was, it might work a little bit better, where there's kind of a dog leg going into the braking zone that naturally pushes the guys over to the left-hand side, because that's the one thing that the shifter guys were saying is when you have it where they're naturally going to go in a little more narrow to any of these double apex hairpins, it's going to, they're already on a narrower line with the gearbox classes entirely. So you just send it in, and it was really tricky for them to pass. And that was a big story of 2021's layout last year is they really couldn't get around each other at a few of the Winter Tour layouts, same type deal. It was, all about really just qualifying and hole shot, and they were kind of playing follow the leader. So I'm hoping that they'll have some good racing over there. Unfortunately, we won't be at that one. We'll do some preview shows about it, and we'll bring on Oliver Askew. I'm going to be racing that along with the Super Nats. He's going to come on Happy Hour, I think, next week, if I'm not mistaken. And we'll get a few more of the guys where we can, depending on how big a busy of a setup day they'll have on Tuesday next week to come and join us on the preview show. So we'll ask them a little more on that. But let's go ahead. We'll bring in our guest of honor here for tonight, Christian Marsh. Christian, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for giving us a lot to talk about here today, man. Just a few hours ago, Talk about a bombshell, brother.
Yeah, we're pretty excited. Obviously, I think most people saw at this point that we finally announced we're going to add the OKN program to Stars for 2023. So that's pretty exciting. It's something that, man, Joe and I have had arguments about, even just the standard OK platform for the last 2.5 years. And when we got news about the OKN deal, we were just like, yeah, I think that's the one. That's the fit. Keep the cost down a little bit. Keep the reliability up, which I think is important, but still give people that like top tier, it's 35 horsepower, direct drive, water cooled. They're just badass. So I think we're pretty excited about it.
And this has been a process that you guys have been going through for a little bit to kind of make this whole come together. So, why, can you walk us through a little bit of that, right? Stuff that everything you were concerned about of going back and forth before ultimately making the decision?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much of it, I can divulge, but we were in contact with the CIK for the past few months and just talking about the program, things to expect, kind of what they had seen in the development side, and just trying to make sure we had, a good plan put together before we finally committed to doing the program. The people at the CIK were great and shared a ton of information with us, and really hats off to them for creating a program that offers so much parity. I think that's probably the biggest question that we've gotten today is, what about the concern of like, oh, do I have to go buy 4 motors now? And that's just not the case. I mean, even if you look at just the standard OK platform, I think there were 3 manufacturers in the top 5 at Worlds a few weeks ago. So, to have that type of parity in what's more of an open category, I think is really indicative of the CIK putting in the work and taking the time to make it right. But yeah, we spent some time in contact with the CIK, obviously in contact with other programs. Coda and Andy Seisman on the West Coast, they just added the OKM program a little differently, just with the rock, the rock package for the first year, the Vortex package rather. So I think that either way, it's good to stay in line with those guys and make sure that people who are running that Vortex package can, take them back and forth. But really for us, it's something that we're not going to put a lot of time and energy into trying to come up with stuff. The CIK is doing it right. So we're just going to commit the same way we do with the KZ category to just adhere to what the CIK provides us for regulations and let the, racing happen on the track, I guess.
And I mean, you guys are, first ones through the wall to say it, right? I mean, this is going to be year one with the program for it. So, what's got you confident about, going at it and being one of the year one series to adapt it? I mean, there's a lot of hype around it, right? There's always hype around new stuff, right? But I'm sure that's obviously probably part of the concern that you guys are weighing back out too, is I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people, promoters, engine builders, shops, teams kind of waiting to see or just curious. You guys are going to be the ones leading the charge. What's the thought process behind that, being the first ones to go?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's kind of just a little bit of a representation of like mine and Joe's personality. We try to be the first ones to come up with new stuff. It's just what we enjoy doing. So for us, you take the risk, and yeah, there's definitely some risk here. Obviously, the risk being like supply chain issues, which is another part of why we've put so much effort into making sure we knew when the engines would be released, that they'd be available, things like that. But there's also risk in it just not being received well and things like that. But I think at the end of the day, the level of communication that we have with our competitors and teams and things gives us the ability to try new things. I mean, we did it with the Discord program that we use at our events. We did it with the light system that we use at our events. So I think that there are going to be growing pains. There are going to be things that need worked on or need corrected or worked through in that first year or two. But I think having that open communication, it kind of takes all the pressure away, right? Because people expect it's new. People understand that it's a new addition to the country. There's going to be a learning curve. There's going to be things we learn. There's going to be things competitors learn. So as long as we're communicating and working through that process together, I don't think it's really a scary thing.
I mean, that's right. Like, you guys have, I think, done a really good job on, even just the team principal meetings you've had this year. Everyone seems to be on the same page with it all. It's exciting from us on the sidelines. I can armchair quarterback all day long every single week on the show, and it's a lot of fun to play that. And you get to do that as well when we have off the grid stuff on here too. And I enjoy that. I think next year is going to be super interesting for the sport as a whole, right? I mean, for you guys, this puts you, I think, in a whole different ball game. I know that every time we come on here, Christian, you're always very particular about how you want the series addressed, right? We don't want to put a label on it, right? Yeah. We don't want to say, specifically, obviously, we don't want to make anyone upset. But I think without question, right, this puts it at a higher level than even before.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the goal is not to put on any specific type of series. The goal is just to host badass go-kart races. That's obviously people call it what they want to call it. We'll never reciprocate that, even if, someday it is in that slot. It doesn't matter to us. So I think that's important. I think I think you're right. It does, add some sort of legitimacy just to having that 125, single speed category. But honestly, our goal is to keep it feeling as much the same as it has in years past. Like, that's the primary focus for us, is keeping that family atmosphere and making sure, the national market's being served really well. The folks at USPKS, the team at SCUSA, they put on amazing events, and there's no reason to try to do what they're doing, because they're doing it just fine. And I think there's room for both. I think that when someone goes to a USPKS event or a Supercarts USA event, there's this level of expectation where, not only does it mean something special, but there's a certain level of commitment you make to doing something like that, a certain level of seriousness, and it changes the dynamic of the event, not in a bad way, just in a different way, right? People take it more serious. When you take it more serious, you're a little bit more heated. Things are a little bit more intense. That's good. That's good for the sport. And there's people that want that environment. And then there's people that want to come to a Stars event, and it's a little more laid back. The staff's, obviously really friendly with the competitors and families. And we try to keep that atmosphere because that's just what we want to do. I mean, people can, say that it's for this reason or that reason, but the reality is, we don't make our livings, off of the Stars program. The NKA pays the bills. And the reality is we just love going to the racetrack. We love trying new things. We love hanging out with not only the people we work with at the events, but the people that come and compete and the families and stuff. And, that's the focus going forward. I mean, it's one of those things that, yes, it's getting elevated. We're obviously already just after this release today, the commitment level from drivers who maybe aren't traditionally Stars competitors is pretty cool. But the reality is, like, our main focus is keeping the culture the way it is and not letting that change with the influx of drivers.
Yeah, which will probably be pretty massive, coming after everything. I mean, you'd imagine that it'd be higher, and then the other thing is this: the OK and stuff's progresses. We don't have a junior platform for that, and so you're obviously in contact with the CIK in their process. Where do they feel with it? I know they're not happy with that, so they don't want to release it yet. Are they working on trying to put a OKNJ together in the future still?
Yeah, and my understanding is that they have one that they're kind of soft releasing for next year. The reality is, and I don't know how much people know about the platform, but it's basically it's parts that are already in production for the OK and the OKJ engine that are kind of being utilized to create the OK National program. So when you have this more of an open format class where really the specifications for the category are like manufactured parts, exhausts, and CCs. Outside of that, there's more things people can do to these motors. So, you know, to restrict a motor that has more than one manufacturer is a little bit trickier than just putting like an exhaust restrictor in a KA or in a VLR or whatever to make it a junior engine. The reality is that something that's really paramount for us, like I said, is that there's parity across the platforms. So meaning we want the people to be on the Vortex, the IAME, the TM, and the Modena to all have an equal shot at competing on a weekend. And the last thing that we want is for people to feel like they have to show up with more than one platform to be competitive in our program. So the last we had spoke to the CIK about the junior program, they were still working through that process of trying to figure out how to restrict all of the engines in a way that maintained that parity and kept them close. Obviously, they figured it out with junior, right? The OK Junior platform seems to be really good. And that's something that we're obviously not adverse to having an OK Junior platform. But we're kind of going to give that a little bit more space just to make sure that that parity's there and make sure that we're not like hitting the market with something that isn't quite ready yet,
That makes sense. I got you. So with that out of the way, and then what's the latest they've got on the OKN World Finals and the tickets for all that? Is that, and that again, he said it was like a slim chance of happening in 23, probably more likely in 24, from what I understand. Am I right about that?
Yeah, so right now, it basically says that that they're going to be giving away tickets in 23, but the event will happen in 24. There's obviously nothing I can share yet as to whether Stars will be giving those tickets out or anything of that sort. But either way, it's something that, if people are more familiar with the program, I heard you guys talking about racing in Europe. If people have the opportunity to compete in an OK category here, it just makes it more comfortable for them to be able to go over to Europe and compete in the category. Because as of right now, if you're an X30 competitor and you go race in Europe at a CIK event or a WSK event, it's really going to be not only the learning curve of like its direct drive, which is something we haven't seen in this country in 2 decades, but just kind of the culture of an event like that, the way they race, things like that, that hopefully, whether you're getting tickets via Stars or not, this gives you a bit of a breeding ground to kind of get U.S. drivers or North American drivers in that position of being comfortable with that sort of package.
Yeah, because right now, anyone that's going over there with the U.S. flag, I mean, they're spending a lot of time over there to get acclimated,
Yeah,
because everything's different. And there's some stuff we can't emulate over here, right? The level of rubber, just the amount of go-karts that hit a track in Italy compared to any go-kart track in the U.S. is just different. Garda's
yeah,
got 100 guys practicing on anything on any given Tuesday,
yeah.
right? It's so different. So the rubber level is just and it's a different material too, from what I understand. The asphalt's a little bit different too.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple facilities here. Obviously, that new K1 facility that Scusa's going to is that mixture of asphalt. I think that the facility at MCC is very close to that mixture of asphalt. So it definitely takes rubber different. And like you said, man, there's no way we can emulate the fact that Garda or any of these places have so many teams that are there every day testing and pounding laps. That's not like, we go to MCC and outside of their club program, they haven't had the track rubber up in a month and a half, 2 months. As where when you're racing in Europe, it's just a different environment. Not only that, there's obviously some structural differences to the format of the event that can be a little bit overwhelming. In the way that their regulations work and all of those sorts of things. But I think that series here are kind of starting to adapt more of those things and make that kind of a constant too. So I think either way, it's a good step to have that continuity between what's happening in North America and what's happening overseas. And I mean, for me, man, it's about damn time. I've been thinking about the, the international market and just having that crossover. There's obviously always concerns. People have done this before, man. It's priced itself out. It's not right for the US market sometimes, but I think that this platform is really going to be a good fit for what people are looking for.
And you're a purist, you love badass racing. Are you stoked about the direct drive stuff? I'm sure you are.
Oh, dude, I'm so pumped. It's I think it does a couple things. One, the racecraft ends up being a little bit different. I think that if anything, there's almost this culture that we've kind of gotten because of clutch carts that, not that you're going to have a successful race if you bin somebody and you're parked on the side of the road, but you can keep going. You're going to be a lot more cautious on the starts and things like that of not getting caught up in shit, being a little bit more polite, being a little bit more respectful. I think it brings a different maybe way of being reserved on track to make sure that you're finishing the race. Cause that if you come parked to the inside of a corner, that's it. You're done. The marshal's going to come over and scoop your cart up and drag it by the front tire off the track. But, yeah, I mean, personally for me, man, it's kind of cool because on Stars weekends, I just get to be a race fan. And, we've had some great racing throughout this year. And I think for me being kind of a purist, it's all about the KZ category. And we've seen some just savage shifter car racing this year, but I think the OK category will give that a run for its money. And I'm just stoked to see how fast they are. I mean, it's definitely faster than an X30 or any of the tag stuff here. So that's going to be pretty badass to see.
They're going to rip for sure. We're going to take a commercial break here, and we'll come right back with more with Christian and everybody. If you guys got more questions here, we got him on the hot seat, so keep on sending them in. So far, it's all been love for you, so nothing to stress about, Christian, but we'll be right back after this, guys. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in after the break.
I'm Billy Vincent, owner of MPG Motorsports. What we do at MPG is we try to keep it a nice, fun family atmosphere, try to combine sort of the bigger things and of the bigger teams and the professionalism down with sort of some of the fun sort of family-oriented atmosphere. We try to not only develop drivers, but also the parents and the families for just in knowledge in general in motorsports. It all starts in karting. What we try to do is try to help the drivers, the moms, the dads understand the sport of motorsports in general, not just karting, but what it takes to get all the way up through. Whether you end up wanting to be a driver or a mechanic or an engineer, we can help you with that, and that's what we're here for. If you're interested in joining us at MPG, our home base is at Whiteland Raceway Park in Indianapolis, and you can contact us at info@willpowerkart.com, and one of our great people will reach out to you, and we'll try to put the best program together.
Looking to join one of the fastest growing kart clubs in the United States? Check out the Mississippi Karters Association. Located at the legendary Spring Ridge Raceway in Jackson, Mississippi, the MKA and Drive Your Line Kart Shop have already kicked off their 2022 year with a massive increase in drivers and some awesome racing. Even if you don't have a kart yet, you can get involved by checking out the Drive Your Line Kart Shop, which is an official dealer of Comp Kart, Tillotson, and Margate chassis, as well as Briggs & Stratton, Tillotson, Yamaha, and IAME engines. If you're a new, returning, or current racer, the MKA and Drive Your Line Kart Shop can help you get in the seat and on the track in the central Mississippi region. Check them out online on Facebook or at misskarting.com and driveyourline.com.
All right, everyone, welcome back here to KC Happy Hour, episode number 64. We've got Christian Marsh in the house with us for the Stars Championship Series. So another thing that I wanted to ask you about, right, is because of the way the market shifted and a little bit of this kind of push again for shifter racing after it's gone through the lull period. KZ's coming back up. Was there any concern when you had these talks about wanting to add a 125 class single speed back in, that it might dilute your stuff a little bit? Oh, I think we got it muted here. Christian, we got your mic for a sec?
It's me.
There you go.
It was me.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, no. So one of the things we were concerned about is honestly we've seen and heard an influx of people that are actually kind of graduating from the KA Stars category into the Pro Stars, the gearbox category.
Right.
So that was really the biggest concern we had going in with the OKN stuff was that we obviously want to feed shifter racing. Joe and myself, many moons ago, we loved banging gears. I think that was definitely the passion point for both of us. So there's still some concern about the KZ category dwindling. Honestly, I don't think it's going to happen. Especially there towards the end of the year, things picked back up with the KZ racing, and I think I've seen some talk about USPKS adding a shifter category in their program.
Just confirmed it.
Yeah, they announced that last week.
Yeah, which is just great, man. I mean, the more places for people to bang gears, and I think that really having more spots for people to race shifters on the East Coast is going to make that a more viable option for people to get into. Before, outside of Pro Tour, if you're going to, spend the money for a KZ platform and realistically have one or two of them, it's kind of hard to do if you only have 4 times a year to race. But now that people have that option, I think that's going to be good for the sport. As far as pulling from the KA category, excuse me, we had, I think, averaged 50 KA stars throughout this season. So to be honest, if it pulls that top 15, 20 guys from that KA category, I still think that's fine. The reality is that the KA category, and this has been a topic of discussion at SCUSA. I know I've heard you guys talk about license points and things of that sort. For me, I kind of have a hard time with these competitors who could absolutely go out and win X30 at Supernats or things like that, coming and running KA. I get it, and I think that there's exceptions, right? Like my best buddy Race Liberantes talked about being a poor guy, and it's expensive to race shifters or X30, and if he wants to go race a go-kart, it's got to be a KA, and I get that side of it too. But certainly you shouldn't be able to do both in the same weekend. I think that kind of poses just an intent issue. Like, is this a pro class? What's the deal? Obviously, the K category still gets some of the best racing, but at least we've seen really just standout performances from people who aren't traditionally like upfront national guys. And we've seen people kind of coming into their own. Like the Bailiff brothers went from, a few years ago, they were hovering in that top 10, top 15. But now they're up there, handing it to guys that are legends, Chase Jones and Ferris and people like that really should be standouts in that KA category. It seems to kind of level that playing field. So, like I said, if it pulls 15 or 20 guys from that KA category, there should be still, 30 or 40 left. I think that having the age be a year older for the OKN category is going to help with that a little bit, because you're still going to get those junior drivers that want that transition year in KA, which I think they should take, not because junior drivers need the extra experience, We actually find a lot of times that the juniors race with better racecraft and more respect than the seniors do. It's more just that, it's a different type of racecraft. It's a different type of racing when you move up to the adult classes. So I think that, yeah, man, I still think there's going to be people that go to KZ. But for the most part, I think you're going to see people that maybe weren't already a part of the Stars program come run the OKN category. And then, maybe a couple of those high percentage KA and maybe even a couple KZ drivers doing it. So it should be cool.
Yeah. And I know you're, like, again, going on like Race's point, right? Like, I know you're not a big proponent for prize money because it feeds just the very, very top half, but
Yeah.
I mean, what part of, like, I'm with you. I don't think I think there's a way to handle it. I think we've seen a lot of different stuff tried in the States to try and distinguish somewhat of a ladder system through the classes, right? From the slower to the faster, harder to drive stuff, when it's at the same series and event. And even then you go back to the stock Honda days where there was, a semi-pro shifter and a pro shifter, same weight, same motor, everything. And then by the end of the program, you saw guys they'd win S2, they'd win the semi-pro title, and then they would quit. They would stop running once they pointed out and couldn't go run in pro shifter. And you see even, I compare stuff a lot to moto because I think it's similar, right? And I follow a lot of good podcasts on that front, and they talk about guys that'll point out of the 250, the semi-pro moto class there on the pro scene, but then they don't have a good ride up in the 450 class. And I think that, again, the road to Indy kind of suffers it a little bit too, because you're looked at, even though you don't point out of Indy Lights or USF or Pro 2000, if you're in those series for more than 3 seasons, you kind of don't get looked at anymore as a good prospect. But because of that, then they've got to find whole new fields year after year, and the field sizes are small and the depth loses. Whereas like the NASCAR Xfinity and the Truck Series, there's a lot of career guys in those series that stay there, but they just don't make as much money. So have you, do you personally have any like ideas or stuff like that would incentivize people to go up without like blocking people out from running the stuff below?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. The reality is we probably won't regulate it this season, especially just with it being new, just kind of give it the space to do what it does. Like I said, I am definitely, and we can talk about it if you guys want to, but I'm not a proponent of payouts for pro classes. I think that when you put money in front of people, it makes them drive like assholes. And I think the reality is there's 10 people in the country that are getting that money anyways. If we say it's 10 grand to win, I can tell you the 10 single speed pro drivers that are going to get that 10 grand, and nobody else has a shot at it. I think the direction we're going to take with the Stars program is much more team driven. Having a program which rewards teams that support the series and bring, X number of drivers and help them with expenses and things, because, the reality is at events like ours, it's still great that there's mom and pop teams, and we never want to single them out at all. But the majority of the sport can't do it without a team. They need the support of having, data, a tuner, things like that. So really, we're going to go that direction. I think the main thing that should make drivers want to move up into the pro category at some point is ego. It's a little bit crazy to me that it's such a big split, man. We race because you want to be the best. If you don't think you're the best driver, if you don't think that you're a badass and you're going to show up and drive good, you're in the wrong sport. That's like the whole goal is to be faster than the other guy. So for me, I think when you're, responsibly, when you're at the point where you've graduated from the KA class, if you're in the top 5, top 10 in the KA race at USPKS or SCUSA for a year, then you should move up. And if you don't want to move up, you're sandbagging, and we should call people out on sandbagging. But at the same time, there's no life isn't binary, right? Things aren't usually this or that. There's always a gray area. So there are going to be situations where drivers don't have the funds to run X30, or don't have the funds to run shifters anymore, but they still want to race. So that's what makes it hard to regulate it. That's what makes it hard for us to call something black and white and say if you've accrued X number of championship points and KA stars, you have to go to OK. I don't think that's the answer either. I think it should be more of a community driven and culture driven thing.
I agree. I'm with you there. I don't think we should be like forcing guys out, off regulation. I'd be cool if, like when we talk prize money, because we've said that it's there, and like you said, it shouldn't. It definitely, number one, I think it shouldn't be top heavy, right? Because when you have any kind of like fruit or carrot to dangle, you could have it where the 10th place guy feels like he's got a shot at 10th, so then your 20th place guy will show up because he doesn't think he can go beat AJ in the Pro Stars class, but he can maybe get 10th, and maybe even. I mean, having it where like maybe it's not race to race, but if it were a really, really heavy championship points, deal, right? Like all that we've seen in the States so far, some of the best packages for any of them is, and Stars does it really well too, right? You get the champion circle, you get to run it the whole next year, you get that funded. That's cool. That would be something cool. That would be a different way of like, offering a guy to go up. Is if the guy performs in KA, it's like, all right, well, let's give you an OKN engine, and what would be do you need an extra set of tires, at each race the next year, and stuff a little bit the way down to, maybe make it where they could at least try it for 1 year and see if they could go up if they don't have the funds to do it. And the same with the championship prizes going down to, you went down to 5th or 10th in the championship, not only incentivize the guys to run all 10 all rounds, but then you're, you could be a 15th or 20th place every single race kind of guy, and you could get into the top 10 in the points just by being consistent, because the top guys will wreck out or not run every race.
Yeah, that's something actually that Billy Vincent from Aero McLaren and I talked about at MCC was, and 100% credit to Billy. He was like, man, I'll tell you what, if you're talking about giving teams an entry for drivers, you should be able to designate that it has to be for a pro class. And then if somebody performs in like KA, and his reference was Indy Lights, like if they perform in KA, you should give them a scholarship to move up to OKN.
Yeah.
And I think the reality is we'll probably do something like that because it makes sense. I think the only way to do it fairly would be to basically give them like a dollar amount scholarship that they could use to receive an OKN from any of the 4 manufacturers. Obviously, we have a great relationship with IAME, and in my mind, there's nobody doing it better as far as parity in the IAME spec classes like the Swift and the KA package. But it's really important to us, I think, the same with the KZ, that all the manufacturers feel like they have a home with us for the OKN package. So I think maybe awarding drivers like a dollar amount in scholarship that they're able to then, use with a team within the Stars program, whether it's, SRP with the Magic guys, they'll have TM. I know Ohio Kart Parts today said they'll have 2, if not 3 of the engine manufacturers on board for next year. And obviously the DR guys have been at the Stars events. They're the Modena importer. So I think being able to support any of those guys that you choose to is going to be paramount to whatever we do with some sort of scholarship program.
Yeah, especially if it was like how the Indy Lights scholarship works, where it could be like, engine money plus a little on top, right? And then those guys could not only go to, they could shop around a little bit, right? Because then the right manufacturer, if they really perform, could cut them a discount or even give them the motor, right? And take the money and put that into the expenses to run the guy for the year. That's the other half that doesn't get talked about as much because it all happens in the contract deals behind the doors for all those Indy road to Indy guys, right? They win the scholarship money. It's normally bare bones. It's not enough for what the retail cost for the right team is. But if the guy's good enough, he can get a lower rate, a lower cost for the season by taking that money or again, the Indy Lights champ, right? Like he can go to a team and say, well, I've got this to bring. I got this to go with, because a KA guy absolutely could run on his own. The OKN probably could, but it's going to be a higher competition level, and with the multi-manufacturers, you might want to try and align with a team that feels like they've got a really good relationship with whatever importer they're going to run with, so having stuff to me that just like incentivizes guys to go up, but doesn't like, beat them down for staying down, I think is the way to go about it. And that, that's why like I push for the prize money, but not just to add on to the top 5 guys because it's already there. I think if you did it, I'd love it to be where, if a guy finished 5th in OKN, he netted at the end of the season spending the same amount of money that the guy that won the KA championship had,
Yeah.
because then you're naturally going to filter your best guys up, and the same up to the KZ stuff too, right? Because that's a jump in a lot of directions. And at least now with OKN, if he goes to OKN, I mean, we've seen guys even go from KA to KZ, but X30 to KZ with a lot less testing days than I thought they would need to get up to speed. And I'm sure you've seen the same thing. Like I thought for a long time that part of the harsh jump, if the KZ classes got back to where they're headed to now, that, to get a guy to move from X30 over, it would take them a long time to catch up. But I don't think that's the case. I think some guys, it could take just a couple test weekends and they could be front runners by the end of the season or even sooner, from what we've seen this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that obviously every situation is going to be unique as far as a driver's ability to adapt to a different category. The thing that pops out in my head, I think, is Jonathan Ocasio at MCC. His first weekend in a shifter card. I know he did a few test weekends at Pitt with Magic, but he went from KA to the KZ package or the ROK package and was, right there with Blake Hunt, who has consistently been one of the fastest gearbox drivers, on the East Coast this year. So I think that, like I said, it's a package to package thing. We've seen some of the most successful X30 drivers in the country have a go at running like a ROK shifter or KZ and not do that well. So I think that it's a lot on driving style. There's some people that their style lends themselves to being faster in a shifter than others. But it like you said, it is a learning curve. And I think a big part of the learning curve also, like you said, is the support. I mean, I know that, a lot of the people who, they work on their own things, they tune their own carts at the races. The KA platform is so user-friendly compared to something that's, direct drive or a KZ package, even just in knowing how to set up the carburetor, and things like that it's really good to have that level of support. And like you had mentioned, we do already give scholarships to the top 3 in our championship that, the champions race completely for free the next year, all on us. And then we give, an allotted amount of scholarship points to the 2nd and 3rd place drivers. But you do make an incredibly valid point about going back further in that line. The question becomes at what point, obviously as a program, we need to make enough money to generate these events, especially with the amount of people and manpower that we bring in, 30 employees, flights, things like that. So there's an allotted amount of money that we designate to give back specifically in championship and prize money. Would that be better served getting the top 3 more stuff or getting back further? That's kind of like a 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other sort of question. Because the reality is, if we can only afford, if we go back to 10th place, but 10th place is getting a $50 credit or a $100 credit, how much of an impact is that making on the $6,000 race season you just had? So, but now if we do that, now the package for the winners maybe isn't that good either. So that's the hard debate right now. I feel like our focus is on rewarding people that commit to the whole series and perform over a year, versus individual races. But it's definitely something that we'll probably discuss internally, is how far back do we go in the future? And do we kind of try to dangle that carrot back more for people that aren't going to be in the top 3 at the end of the season?
Yeah, because, pretty much every class this year, with the exception of the subclasses like the ROK stuff, had, what would you say? I think the lowest, like the mini and the micro, maybe only had 10 guys that ran all 4 rounds or something like that. I think, KA had probably 20 to 25 ran all 4 rounds in junior and senior, more or less. KZ had at least from what I can remember, at least 10 I think, that ran all of it. So I think it should obviously be more than just a participation award for showing up to all four. It should be at least 5 to 10 spots above it. But yeah, I mean, it's always tough to, ask for the prize money. I'm not distinct to that, right? That we're just banging out these series saying you need to make $0 for your own personal business and give me everything just because I spent a little bit of money with you, but
no, but people should. I mean, that's part of it, man. That's part of the sport. We want to make sure people feel like we're giving back. I just don't necessarily think that the way other series are doing it is the way to do it. I'm certainly not saying I have the answers, but I'm saying that it's something that I think if same mentality we have with adding the OKM platform, if you're going to do something, do it the right way. And if you don't have the right way figured out, maybe it's not the best time to do it. I don't by any means feel like you guys have an opinion that's invalid when you say that there should be a high level of reward for competitors, because there should be. But I'm also, realistic to the fact that, you want to utilize those resources in the most efficient way possible. So it's hard to come up with the right way to do it, man.
No, it definitely is, right? Like back on like the debate, like in the moto side, like Chad Reed had a good input, I thought, on one podcast he went on. He's like, you don't need to, you could scrap the points pointing out they had for their 250 class, but just put a salary cap on the division. And so in the same way, if the prize is right now, correct me if I'm wrong. So it's the same across the board for every class, right? So like if let's say, and it would, it wouldn't, maybe it's not even Stars funding it. It would need to get a right title sponsor, marketed the right way. We go heavier on the headline classes and all that. But if KA had a small scholarship and then it was an even bigger, prize pool that went to the top 5 for the OKN, and then the big Mac Daddy was your KZ Pro Stars division, then there's more of a reason to go there, right? Because it obviously costs more, right? Yeah. Not necessarily more to you guys directly. Their fees are the same. You could mark their fees up, right? Because that's another thing that I've heard from a lot of parents too, that when they get to certain classes and certain levels of racing in the sport, their entry fee obviously is stagnant. So they're spending double the money. I mean, I don't know what the right budget would be for the level of competition at KZ Stars races at or right now. I'd say some people have probably shown up with one KZ motor and are still running top 10
certainly.
or 15 for sure. And still a few privateers, especially in the KZ Masters classes, right? But talking KZ Stars as it develops, right? Eventually, everyone's going to be showing up with at least an A and a backup. They're going to be going through an extra set of tires at minimum, if not 2, compared to the KA guys. So they're spending all that much more. If you made their entry fee $100 more, then you maybe wouldn't get as much pushback from the support class people of making that KZ prize pool bigger, right? Yeah. Because I don't think they would, from the KZ guys, well, they're already spending double, so another $100 or $200 to go into their pool, they wouldn't really complain about versus a lower budget class. And then again, from the lower budget class guys on the outside, they can't really say too much that their prize pool isn't as big because their entry fees are smaller. I mean, that's one thing, at least with the USPKS stuff. And I think it's the same with Pro Tour too for SCUSA, that the X30 junior and senior, and then the shifter classes that have guaranteed payouts on the Pro Tour. If you get over 30 entries in your class, it will pay out some, won't pay out as much. But in everything that's got a guaranteed payout of those 5K to win weekends down to the top 3, there is normally $50 to $100 more on the entry fee.
Okay. I wasn't aware of that.
So while they are top heavy and heavy towards the headline classes, at least those classes do pay a slightly higher fee. And even with that, I'm still hearing that people would love to have it either pay more depth or more to the winner, both sides. I mean, you hear it from guys that actually had a shot at the win. They don't want to win more, obviously, but the guys that are, not in that top 30 that would like to have a little bit of change, they're still spending an astronomical amount that weekend. So going from a $450 or $500 entry fee to a $600 entry fee isn't really going to make a difference of whether or not they can go to another race, but it could give them a potential $500 payout to finish at 5th. So I'm with you on the money race and race to race could be a little crazy. I mean, I'm all for crazy out of our headline classes. That's our show. You know, our KZ
Yeah.
finale to stars was badass this year with AJ from the back and everything. Definitely wouldn't want to put any money up in the mini classes for sure.
Yeah.
but but if the case, you know, I mean, it'd be curious, right? You've got the communication, you got the teams. I'd be really, really curious to know if the KZ Stars guys were like, all right, bump our fees up $100 and let's make our championship points prize a little beefier. You know?
Yeah. No, absolutely a valid point. And one of the reasons I love having these discussions with you guys or whoever I talk to is like, we genuinely take this stuff to heart, man. It's you can guarantee as soon as I'm off the screen here, I'm texting Joe and saying, hey, let's, evaluate bumping the price in the pro categories. And the way we've done it up until this point has been that if a class averaged over X amount of entries per event, I think the number was 15, that then not only do they get the guaranteed season entry and things like that, they also get $1,000 in scholarship credit. So that is kind of, we've done it based on size. But obviously that was kind of something we did as the program was growing.
Right.
At this point, like you said, there's no classes that are really lacking. Every class I think is around that 20 to upwards of that 60 mark with KA. So at this point, that's not really the answer anymore. And it's definitely worth evaluating, like, hey, do we kind of maybe separate a couple of these programs to not only incentivize drivers to go that direction, but really reward the people that are, like you said, putting on the show. Because without a doubt, I mean, when the KA Stars class and the Pro Stars categories, that's everyone's on the fence line. That's what the highlights get put on YouTube. That's what people are there to watch. So maybe there is, some value in doing something different for those categories going forward.
Yeah, it just kind of adds on to what you're saying, that of like the ego change, right? The mindset, I think, changes. Number one, I think you can tell from a lot of people the way they talk about senior. I like to take a little bit of pride. I think we've added on to a little bit of that with how heavy all of our coverage has been on the senior stuff as well, that it's kind of made those classes heightened again, like how they were when you and me and Aaron were growing up. We'd always look up to the senior kids, and now they've got so much more content to learn of and become fans of them like we were of the stars of our day when we were the kids classes there. But I think it's also like when you go there, you understand that it's different. You're not trying to get the best, bang for your buck. You're going to race the best. And so when you have that mindset shift, then it seems like you have less pushback for being top heavy or heavier prizes or higher costs, because it's just a different way of going to the racetrack, right? If I'm going to a stars race and I'm racing KA Stars, I'm going there, obviously knowing I'm racing a really good field, especially this year, without a doubt, but I'm not feeling like it's a waste of a weekend if I go in with one motor or out of a pickup truck, or if I go with a team. Like either way, I'm going there just to have a competitive field and enjoy racing. And if I were to go in the OKN class, and the way it'll probably turn out, maybe not initially next year, as some people wait on the fence, I'm sure. I'm not saying it won't be big. I think it's a shock, and I think a lot of people are excited, and it will be. The first year, everything's always a little bit light. But if I were to go to KZ, I'd want to be like, you know what, like budget, I close my eyes on my bank account and my credit card statements, but I'm going there to be the baddest motherfucker there. Pardon my language. But it's just a difference in viewpoint. And from what I've noticed and the people we talk to is when you have that difference in viewpoint and the majority of people change over to that, then you can charge a little more and give a little more back. Whereas like you probably wouldn't, most of your mini and your K junior parents would not be super stoked if you added a $50 extra fee onto it.
Honestly, man, it's probably the parents that would be the issue. It's one of those things where the more serious people take things, not that we don't want them to take it serious, but even like you said, the difference between the KA category outside of the finale at MCC, where obviously, 5 points separated the top 4 in the championship, that definitely got a little serious. But I think we've seen, even since year 1 with the gearbox category, which has always kind of been the staple to our program, that's the category that competitors take seriously. And it comes out in the way they drive on the track. It comes out in the way they talk to each other in the scale line, things like that. So it already has that kind of intensity ratcheted up a couple notches. And I'm definitely, man, I'm all game for anything we can do to kind of add to that lure of that category without taking away from obviously all the other categories in the program, which are, just as important and just as exciting throughout the season.
Absolutely. Well, we've got a lot of questions starting to come in. We'll give you guys one more chance to add a few more. We'll hit them all right after the break as we get to our final segment of the show, everybody. Thanks as always for tuning in. We'll see you right after this.
Kart Store USA is a kart parts supplier that racers and retailers can count on when they need reliable advice and service. We focus on servicing all racers with honesty and pride while maintaining customer satisfaction. We carry a full stock of Kart Republic and Tony Kart chassis, as well as IAME and Vortex ROK engines. We've also got a host of other parts available and in stock, such as products from Rev Performance Materials, Jecco Racing Seats, and more. We have a 100% satisfaction guarantee, and on top of that, if your order exceeds $200, shipping is on us. Check out all we have to offer today by visiting us online at kartstore-usa.com.
At New Gen Motorsport, we're committed to using our 10-plus years of experience and knowledge to help grow the sport of karting from the bottom up. Our goal is to make karting more accessible to the average person, lessening the financial burden of getting started, and making the learning curve as small as possible. Our passion is training and developing drivers, mechanics, and engineers to not only be the best they can be in karting, but also for careers in the much larger world of professional motorsports. A strong foundation makes building bigger easier. Let us be that foundation for your karting and motorsports career. Be part of the new generation of motorsport. Contact us today to schedule your test day, arrive and drive race event, or to inquire about how we can help get you started in your own new gen racing kart.
Don't settle for a national engine builder. Take care of yourself with an international one. SRP Engines is a global industry leader in engine services, specializing in engine formulas such as KZ, OK, OKJ, and Mini 60. SRP Engines is the engine of choice for Magic Kart USA and helped power North America's #1 ranked pro shifter driver AJ Myers to the 2021 SuperKarts USA Pro Tour National Championship. SRP Engines can also service any spec engine class of your choice, including IAME and ROK divisions. However, if you're looking for the absolute choice when it comes to KZ shifter engines, there is nobody better. For more information, contact Amr Sonata at srp-engines.com. KC Happy Hour is proudly presented by the ROK Sonoma Karting Championship, presented by Cameron Race Promotions, the most competitive Northern California karting series. Featuring a 2-day format with practice on Saturday and racing on Sunday, multiple track configurations, and a massive prize structure including tickets to ROK Vegas, race car test opportunities, and race rewards. ROK Sonoma is the training ground of multiple national karting champions each year and race car champions as well. Featuring a full ROK Cup USA class structure with each race weekend streamed live via YouTube, it's a series you cannot miss. For more info, check us out online at zanzarukarting.com.
All right, everybody, welcome back here to KC Happy Hour, episode 62. Christian Marsh joining us along with Aaron Hackmeister as always. Christian, I don't think this is as big of a concern beyond the internet, really, and when we get to reality, but it's a classic question we always get when a new motor package comes in, and that is the shelf life, really, of it. Or I shouldn't say shelf life. I don't know a better way to talk about it, but engine longevity between rebuilds. From what I've read in the initial articles, they were advertising between 30 to 40 hours as the testings progressed. What has been the pitch we've been told to understand a little bit on what we should expect?
Yeah, so I mean, from what we've heard from the CIK directly, 30 to 40 hours has been pretty consistent. Obviously with that comes a level of realism that if people are intending on being up front at each event in this category, they're probably showing up fresh to every event.
Right.
That's a discussion that I think is definitely, it's valid that people have that concern. I understand. Obviously we're still going to maintain and put a big priority on the KA categories. So I think that just like anything else, not everything is for everybody. So, and we understand that. We kind of want to have a platform for everybody to kind of find a spot that they fit. So yeah, I mean, like I said, the longevity of it is that it lasts longer than, in theory, an X30. It should have a little bit better wear cycle than the regular OK platform does. But the reality is the people that are planning on being up front and the people who are up front in KA generally are keeping their stuff pretty fresh. So that's I don't really have an answer for that other than, the feedback's been really good from over in Europe, and, hopefully it's good enough that it does give people in that like middle to tail of the category that still want to run that platform, that they don't have to, feel like they got to send it off to somebody every weekend.
And then from a price standpoint, right? Do you know roughly where they're set to start at between the four manufacturers?
Yeah, so right now, keeping in mind anything coming out of Europe is kind of at the mercy of the state of the EU and things like that. But right now, with the exchange rate, it's looking like around 2,500 US, which obviously, that is the motor from the factory. That's not a motor that's been gone through or things like that. Um, but it is an incredibly reasonable start point for a package of this caliber. And again, people have to differentiate between, we're not comparing this to the KA platform because it's nothing like the KA platform. I think a more reasonable comparison would be to the KZ platform, where, it's open manufacture, it's faster, and compared to the standard OK platform and to the KZ platform, it's way more viable price point wise.
Right. So with shoot, I had one more thing on it, and then I got let's see. We did have a question on a master's OKN class. I don't know about this one here, Christian. What do you want to take that one?
Yeah, it's hard. Like anything, there's only so many hours in a day. Something that we really make a primary focus at Stars is getting people not only ample seat time, but sometimes in excess of seat time. And that means not oversaturating the market. There's a place for these series that have 20 different categories. Stars isn't that place. So we do have, a single speed Masters option with the KA Masters, which we averaged, 15 to 25 carts in that category all year. So there is that option for the Masters guys. That's something that we've had in our program since day one. But at this time, I don't see any chance we're at an OKN Masters class.
And then this one, probably to give a little clarity, right? So this is from Ryan Aiden Motorsports asking, so if a team gets something back from Stars, but if you're not a team, if you're a privateer, you're just kind of there. And that's something that, goes, I think that was kind of when we were talking about like compensation or giving back with the series. So
yeah.
You want to take this a little bit here and run with it?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, there is an exchange of service that happens when you go to a motorsports event. It's not just in karting. It's if you were to race motocross or even consumer GT car racing like SRO, the series and the facilities have an associated cost with preventing or promoting an event that you're taking part in. And obviously, if you were just to make it free, that couldn't happen. There's got to be some sort of exchange. So while I completely understand the point, it's a bit of a difficult scenario because, like I said, if you were to give back all of the money that you make, what's the incentive to, have a good event that's well run, that has all of the bells and whistles and the live broadcast and things like that? You have to make a choice. And it's not that we're trying to reward teams any more than we reward drivers, but the way that we kind of try to take care of the drivers is things like the season pass package, which allows drivers to get the season entry as a single driver at a way reduced price compared to other programs, of kind of a similar level in the US. Giving away individual event prizes, tires from MG, apparel, things like that. Obviously, we still care about the privateer teams. There's nothing we love more than, a family, a mom and a daughter or father, son that show up and they race and they're there to have fun. But I think the reality is that as a sport, the sport relies on a functioning economy. And if there's not a functioning economy within the sport, the entire sport suffers for privateers and for teams. So teams are, accruing tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in investment every year. Bringing in 20 to 30 drivers to these events. Obviously, in business, that's something that we have to make sure they feel the love too. So it's definitely not in an effort to single out individual drivers or privateers, and it's not going to take away from the things we do for privateers. It's just that we also feel that we need to be supporting teams and making sure that they know we appreciate them choosing to bring their customers to run with us.
Makes sense. It's a solid, well put together answer, Christian. You've got your hat really well on here tonight to represent Stars and everything.
It's got a strap so it doesn't come off too.
Yeah, it's a classic one. What have you gotten one of those sombreros branded yet? By the way,
I haven't.
You need to.
When we were, it's hard to take away the positives from the event in New Jersey this year, but seeing Keith Rafa from that Northeast group up there with Full Tilt with a Stars hat, he just slapped the Stars sticker on the front of his sombrero all weekend. The amount of people that walked up to us asking if we were going to get them made, man, I had them priced out. We're going to get the bottom of them, custom print and everything. It's definitely on our list of apparel that we'll have next year. For me, it's really just, it's kind of become my signature, but it's all functional because I'm super bald under this hat and the sun hates me. So just got to keep it shady, dude.
You look good, man, Mr. Catnat. So what else, man? Is there anything else new and spicy you got for next year yet? I know there's a lot cooking, obviously. You got Stars Fest. Have you had Stars Fest yet when you guys go and hang out and brainstorm?
No, Stars Fest will happen probably after the PRI show. For people who don't know, we get a cabin in the middle of nowhere and spend 7 days, kind of the core members of the team coming up with what we're going to do and doing all the planning. But, a couple things that we're pretty excited for. We're going to have some VIP opportunity next year. So we're working with a few outside companies in motorsports that we're really stoked to kind of put together some VIP experience for people at our events. Obviously continuing, relationships with companies like Extreme and things like that to make sure we're just doing cool stuff. And then obviously for me, we announced that we're going back to Pittsburgh for that third round, which is pretty exciting. I think the track in Pittsburgh produces some really good racing, good views. It seems to be a favorite again with the transparency. I mean, in our team principal meetings, we asked the teams and walked around the paddock asking privateers and drivers where they wanted to race. And I think just kind of there's really, unfortunately, not that many tracks, especially in this part of the country, that can host a big event. Once you start pulling semis into the paddock and getting everyone parked and having the facilities and things like that, the number starts to really shrink of places we can go. So excited to get back to a facility like Pitt. The place is great. The management, Dave and his team there have been awesome. So really excited to get back there. And then, yeah, obviously we'll have more cool shit to announce, but nothing really at the moment.
Have we posted the Pitt deal yet? I don't think we've posted that one yet. Is that breaking on us?
I don't think that's breaking. It was kind of a soft release. It's the Steel City Showdown. I believe it's July 7th through the 9th next year. All that information is available at starschampionshipseries.com. Obviously, we tried to work with Neil at SCUSA and then with Mark at USPKS to make sure our schedules, line up really well for teams and drivers. So that's pretty exciting that we were able to pull that off for this year. And other than that, man, just, those 6 months can't go by fast enough, man. I miss the family we work with. I miss the family that come and run Stars events. So really, let's just pluck away at these next few months, get them over with and get back to the track.
It sounds good, man. It's a good vibe that you guys have got at the events for sure, man. I think like I said, I speak for everybody else, with making it, official here today. It's exciting. It's interesting. It's fun to be, watching how this stuff's going to unfold next year with the OCAN platform. I think I think I speak for a lot of our viewers. There's a lot of curiosity, right? There's no secret that we've been spec for a while. There's been good and bad about it. We've been on this show and talked in a number of different ways of all kinds of hypothetical options and alternatives, to the programs that we have here in the States. This is something that's different. The whole series, like you said, prided on being different, being new, and being, just trying stuff that's cool. So how it all works out, how it plays out next year is fun for me to be on the sidelines for this one. In this case, I'm sure it's probably exciting on the inside
It's fun.
too.
Yeah, it's fun for us too, man. We're pumped.
But I'm really pumped to see how it's going to go, man. I mean, this is now I think the whole industry is going to have to put its money where its mouth is on a lot of this stuff, right? Do we really want to do what we say we want to do? And if we do, and it sounds like we do, then this is a new era, or what could be. I mean, it's just, there's so many different opportunities when you have the multi manufacturer format in, if it grows in the way that it can, from the competitive price market to another avenue for drivers being able to try and, align with different people. And maybe, if for some reason at a Stars race, let's say Modena or, what's the other one that's I guess Modena or TM, right? Let's say Modena or TM, they don't have any front running guys. All the front running guys are IAME or Vortex, and a 5th place or top 5K guys looking for a team to go with. And let's say you got that hypothetical sponsorship from winning the K deal, you might be able to get a little more help from the Modena or TM aligned teams to go and run. And that's something that we haven't seen before, and ultimately it just fuels back to getting more go-karts on the racetrack, more badass drivers on the racetrack. And that's all anybody really wants to see. It's cool to hear you describe yourself at the start of the reason as a race fan, because that's what I think everybody in the sport really boils down to, and most do. But this is a way I think that, we're going to get to really enjoy being race fans from that aspect,
Hell yeah, man. Yeah, I'm excited to be a part of it.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining us, Christian. We'll let you go, brother. And off the grid, are we official here for this week? We got Race Lebrante. He's already talking all this smack to you in the chat.
Wow.
So, look at this. He can't get on, and we can't get a new off the grid out last week. But he's out here just calling you Amish all day long.
I do live next to one of the largest Amish settlements in the world, so I'm just trying to blend in when I go to the store. No, I think there's definitely a chance we get off the grid back this week. Obviously we love doing it. Sometimes life gets the best of you, and I've been at Disney with my family for the past couple weeks, and I know Race has had a bunch of stuff going on, so we're gonna try to get one this week, and if not, for sure next week back with Off the Grid. And more on that. We'll obviously get the info over to Kart Chaser and let you guys know tomorrow.
Yeah, well, we're looking forward to having it. Oh, he's calling his shot already. Race says he's available this week. So here we are, folks. He's calling it. We're putting him on the live. We're letting everybody know. Yep. Off the Grid's coming this week too, here from Christian and Race. Christian, thanks again, buddy. Have a good night, brother.
Thanks so much, guys. See you later.
See you. And so with that, ladies and gents here, that is about wrapping up our show. Aaron, closing thoughts on that whole deal, man?
I don't know. I mean, I think Christian put me back in a go-kart though. I was saying at IAME Grands, like, oh, Stars announces it. I'm gonna go get an OKN. I'm gonna
get out of you, so. Dude. All you've been providing yourself on for the last 2 years is, I ran K Senior on a $10,000 budget, and I ran the whole USB. What kind of budget are you? No, get out of here. You're gonna test one and then go back to working for somebody.
No, I'm going to work for my engine builder, so I'll be able to actually make decent money doing that, and then hopefully have like discount on engine, whatever. We'll see what the whole deal ends up being. But I was thinking about doing it. If the running costs are similar to a K, I can swing that for Stars. I mean, that $10,000 over each season was including PKS and everything. And then just Stars actually is pretty manageable. They do a good job of running a budget conscious series.
Well, so this is from Trailer Kart Tech here, Mark Trailer, and question about engine life on testing hours more than racing. So that's where I think that 30 to 40 hours is going to come in. And to give a little clarity for everyone watching the show, the OKN, one of the major differences from the OK Senior that it's limited down to is 1,000 RPM lower. From where I spoke with the CIK guys a few months ago, they were seeing that in the OKJs because they're restricted down to 14,000 RPM compared to the OK Seniors at 16,000. The longevity is a little better. They were getting about 2 weekends if they really wanted to before they saw performance drop off in the slightest. So sometimes they weren't even refreshing motors from a WSK to another, European race. And so with that same kind of mindset, taking that OK senior motor, dropping that thing down 1,000 RPM, that should in theory make that pretty stable in terms of a life on a piston. It's not going to be like it's definitely not going to be like a KZ class. And even then, KZ motors, if you run them with a certain carburation, you can get a little more life out of them too. So I think from a testing standpoint, I think you'll get a lot of life out of the OKN motors. I mean, on paper, everything seems to line up really well. It seems like the CIK is putting a lot of effort in. Again, from the Stars guys, one thing to keep in mind about them, right, is like Christian said, that series, whereas most of our US series are, heavily offset and helped by the sponsorship they have or direct tie they have with an engine manufacturer and maybe a tire or fuel manufacturer as well. Stars is off of the NKA, which the NKA's main revenue source is all the pit pass sales they have at their 200 plus club tracks, regional series, stuff like that. So if the sport is hindered in any way, they feel it. And then on the same front, if the sport benefits, more people drive, more people race, more people come to the track to test, it's a benefit. So I have to imagine that was a big part of their decision as well to, wait on making the decision on the class and with everything they do, to me, I think they're the closest direct line, just by the numbers of their financial bottom line being linked to like what is best for the sport as a whole. And that's not just to say that we're a paid advocate for them. We work for just about everybody in the sport. And I think that, we've done a good job of trying to stay as lenient as we can, but just by paper, they're not, by that motor selling any bit more, right? They're not going to be an importer for any of the OKN engines in any case. So, you would think that, and you can hear it from them too. Like that's their ultimate focus. So I sounds like the motor's going to have a lot of testing longevity, which is good because people are going to want to learn how to drive them and learn how to tune on them a little bit. That'll be pretty cool. And then, I mean, there's just a lot of options of the way this could go. So it stirred up a lot of people. There's a lot of messaging going on behind the scenes, I'm sure of a lot of phone calls all around from everybody, whether they're involved in this or not, whether everyone's going to be watching how the Stars series turns out in 2023. That's for sure. It's going to be an interesting year for the sport with USPKS adding KZ. KZ numbers at Supernats in a few weeks is going to be the biggest it's ever been. A full sellout class is projected at 88. They're already at 80, I think, on the KZ entry list. So if they don't touch 88, they'll probably enter a couple officials to hit the 88. They've never done that. It's never happened before. Now, to be fair, there have been years where they had a ton of stock Honda shifters, and the KZ was a separate class. And so that's why it was always at 44. It's not like shifter racing was super small and then got bigger this year. We're still a little smaller in total gearbox racing from where we were. But the class itself being the only gearbox class, now having 88 in KZ is different. And so it'll be fun to watch. It'll be really fun to watch. And if anyone has looked at the SCUSA timeline, I am so excited. Because they have added us. SCUSA has been really gracious with us. They've added an extra 10 to 15 minutes before the X30 Senior and the Pro Shifter main events. We're going to get to do driver intros. I want to do them a little better than what we did for IAME Grands. IAME Grands was cool, but at Superkarts USA, Supernats 25, we got a Jumbotron. So I'm trying everything that we can to have the coolest, most badass driver intros. I think it would look so cool to do that really, really well. So I hope we really pull it off well, but that's what we got to get back to, man. I got to get over this cold that I got. I don't know if I've sounded weird. Aaron, have I sounded weird this whole podcast?
I noticed
I've
it. I was going to
lot.
say that, but you sounded a little strange. You sounded a little off for sure.
It's been a hell of a week, man. I broke down driving back home from IAME Grands and then got sick. And we got a lot of work to do. So everyone, that signs us off for tonight. Thank you guys so much for watching, man. We're going to have some really cool guests coming up. Again, Oliver Askew is going to join our show next week for the Rock Cup USA preview for Rock Vegas. Good luck to everybody heading out there. By this time next week, everyone will probably already be in Las Vegas for that one. We'll be headed to Vegas the following week to go ahead and get ready for Supernats 25. And a whole lot of content coming between now and then. So that's our main focus, getting that Supernats 25 broadcast knock that out of the park. And in the meantime, any more bombshell news, it'll be tough to top today, but might be coming. So thank you guys for watching here. Casey Happy Hour, episode number 64. Done, dusted. We'll see you guys next Tuesday.